Blessed day, soul family. Welcome back, Martial Mystic Calendar Series 2026. And it is Tuesday, Taiji Tuesday. And so we are kind of going into the woo. At first I was a little sort of apprehensive about the topics that I'm discussing, but I have to I have to continue to validate and qualify the martial mystic moniker. And so today we're talking about the mask, the matrix, the mind, and what is real. Yesterday, and Mental Health Monday, we talked about the, I even forget how to say it. What's it called? The simulation, essentially. The simulation, but we'll get to this. Um, but we talked about the simulation because we were trying to understand what is mask and what is real. What is a mask that we may impose? What is a mask that externally may be imposed onto us? Kind of think about like the idea of labels. Nobody likes to be put in a box. Nobody likes to be labeled. And if we do something, say something, or essentially guilty by association, um, it could be said, who your friends are, that's who you are. So these are things that help us keep safe in the world and understand the world, complex world, and also maintain social order and security and safety as we move in and about the world. When we have an internal mask that we display to society, um, we can often get very attached to that mask, especially if it accrues some favorable things that bring pleasure to our sense desires. If it brings pleasure to our eyes, if it brings pleasure to our ears, our taste and touch, then those things we're going to gravitate towards. And subsequently, our identity will want to make those things more um, abundant and accessible. If we choose an identity that costs us things of sense pleasure, that's not necessarily an identity that we want to continue to have. But what if society gives us sensual pleasures at the um, expense or the compromise of a mask or a role or an identity? And is it possible we lose a sense of self? How do we reclaim a sense of self? How do we ever find a sense of self? So in Tai Chi Chuan, we talk about center, root, balance, structure. These things, these concepts that we learn in the pursuit of learning and practice, we want them to integrate into everyday life. We want our we last week I think we talked about what's the activity that you can grow old with. We want something that we can invest our time and our energy into because it's going to be rewarding on so many levels and fronts. But what happens when we see that we've been living in a false reality, a simulation, a lie, a matrix, or at least when aspects of what we thought were true suddenly do not ring true anymore, and we have to shed identities in the martial arts, in the martial artist's journey and path. The martial artist can become a competitor. A competitor can become a career fight sports champion, essentially. When you identify yourself as a champion and you lose, you have to let go of that role, that title, that belt, which is that sensory pleasure and that validation, and you have to contend with real you. So loss is a great opportunity to find the real you. Who is behind that? Because oftentimes the identity can become burdensome and heavy. And we often long for the lightness of our youth, the lightness of our childlike, awe-inspired youth and energy. And oftentimes, as we get older, the layers of adulthood, um, imposed maturity, and imposed societal expectations can become burdensome to the likes of which we want and desire and seek liberation from. This harkens back to the concept of meditation, the origins of meditation, um, stories of prince. I want to say the plural of prince without saying princesses, but the story of a prince who denounces his uh, worldly possessions and bountiful, what would you say, um, hand-me-downs, which are essentially their wealth. They denounce it all and the seek out the confines, or seek outwardly outside of the confines of the what are perceived as prison walls, but are essentially safety and security walls for the kingdom, going out into the wilderness and into the wild. And this requires courage. This requires going out of that comfort zone. And so in this pursuit, we choose to cultivate the real. This comes back to Taoism. The real man is what the Taoists refer to as Sunrun. The real man breathes through the feet, was a saying. Sunrun. Not just chest breathing or shallow breathing, but they breathe into the earth through the feet. So these are the concepts that we often talked about on the mountain. These are the concepts and the philosophy that have often colored our our discussions. And I'm going to share with you some of the topics and examples that kind of help to elucidate what I'm sort of trying to convey. So here's one example of the simulacra from this French philosopher Baudrillard. And this is a pretty nice explanation. I liked how this is often discussed in healing and in medical Qigong about the map and the territory, or sorry, the territory and the no, sorry, the map and the terrain.
Gave of the map. Say you have a territory and you make a map that is a 1-to-1 scale of that territory. That's a big ass map. Then we place the map over the territory. So you're walking on the map, living on the map, getting into Twitter arguments on the map. The map stays in place for years, even decades, and it begins to get worn out and threadbare. And eventually it's kind of hard to tell what's the map and what's the original territory poking through. Additionally, all the people who were around when the map was originally made are dead, and no one alive remembers a time without the map. Eventually, the map becomes the territory, to them at least. The map is real, and the territory has been forgotten. This is simulacrum. This is a copy without an original. The word that's always missing from this definition is anymore. A copy without an original anymore. A copy whose original has been lost or forgotten through too many iterations. Doesn't that make more sense? Words matter, people.
So that's a good example. A little bit more on this French philosopher.
Baudrillard becomes the most controversial, provocative, cynical, and mind-twisting thinker there might have ever been. He becomes the postmodern thinker par excellence. He wrote that people no longer look at each other, but there are institutes for that. They no longer touch each other, but there is contactotherapy. They no longer walk, but they go jogging, etc. Everywhere one recycles lost faculties, or lost bodies, or lost sociality, or the lost taste for food. As with most post-structuralists, Baudrillard was heavily influenced by Ferdinand de Saussure's revolutionary theory of language. Saussure argued that linguistic systems should be studied synchronically. That's how words relate to each other.
And so Baudrillard, it could be said, was an influence on the famous movie, The Matrix. And you probably remember the scene, but in case in case people come across this video, someone comes across this video and they're not familiar with The Matrix.
This is the construct. It's our loading program. We can load anything from clothing to equipment, weapons, training simulations, anything we need.
Right now, we're inside a computer program?
Is it really so hard to believe? Your clothes are different, the plugs in your arms and head are gone. Your hair has changed. Your appearance now is what we call residual self-image. It is the mental projection of your digital self.
This isn't real.
What is real? How do you define real? If you're talking about what you can feel, what you can smell, what you can taste and see, then real is simply electrical signals interpreted by your brain. This is the world that you know. The world as it was at the end of the 20th century. It exists now only as part of a neural interactive simulation that we call the Matrix. You've been living in a dream world, Neo. This is the world as it exists today.
Welcome to the desert of the real.
We have only bits and pieces of information.
Before we see Neo's reaction, let's listen to another example. I thought that was quite interesting to again try to figure out how society loses track of what is real.
Simulacra don't usually just appear, they happen over a long period of time. According to Baudrillard, there are 4 phases of simulacra that I will now explain using pumpkins. Phase 1, basic reflection of reality. This is a pumpkin. Pumpkin is pumpkin. Technically, this is an image of a pumpkin that you're watching on the internet, but I couldn't get a real pumpkin because it's May. So just pretend this is real. Just pretend this image is real in this video about simulacra. Phase 2, perverting or masking reality. Pumpkin pie. It has pumpkin in it, but it's processed and changed to fit a different purpose. Phase 3 of simulacra, masking the absence of basic reality. Pumpkin spice latte, something I know quite a lot about. It has literally 0 pumpkin in it, but the absence of the pumpkin in this pumpkin drink is hidden by the spices we associate with pumpkin pie. We are reminded of pumpkin, though no pumpkin exists. And phase 4, pure simulacrum, no relation to reality. pumpkin pie coffee creamer. Not only is there no pumpkin, it's not even meant to reference pumpkin anymore, but a previous perversion, the coffee version. It's possible someone could live their entire life only drinking pumpkin pie flavored coffee and never having experienced a real pumpkin. This is detachment from reality, where the image itself is entirely self-referential and only serves to reflect other images or simulacra. Reality, as it was originally understood, a pumpkin, is no longer relevant or even considered. Real pumpkins have nothing to do with pumpkin pie coffee creamer. So
But what we know for certain is that at some point in the early 21st century, all of mankind was united in celebration. We marveled at our own magnificence as we gave birth to AI.
AI. You mean artificial intelligence?
A singular consciousness that spawned an entire race of machines. We don't know who struck first, us or them, but we know that it was us that scorched the sky. At the time, they were dependent on solar power, and it was believed that they would be unable to survive without an energy source as abundant as the sun. Throughout human history, we have been dependent on machines to survive. Fate, it seems, is not without a sense of irony.
The human body generates more bioelectricity than a 120 volt.
I never understood this until now, watching this, but interestingly, listening to him talk about scorching the sky and drowning out the sun was a method of war and a strategy of war to combat the artificial intelligence that was utilizing and dependent upon solar energy. So I thought, oh man, that's really interesting. I never put that together. Imagine now that it's 2026 and we have AI, if AI was able to um, produce such intelligence to utilize the sun in that way, and we had no other decision, no other choice, no other option, no way out but to scorch the sky, as they describe it here.
Volt battery and over 25,000 BTUs of body heat. Combined with a form of fusion, the machines had found all the energy they would ever need. There are fields now, endless fields, where human beings are no longer born. We are grown. For the longest time, I wouldn't believe it. And then I saw the fields with my own eyes. Watched them liquefy the dead so they could be fed intravenously to the living. And standing there, facing the pure, horrifying precision, I came to realize the
I'm
opposite.
just realizing how we are grown, that phrase, we are grown, is interesting to think about in this context, not so appealing, but the idea of self-improvement, we are grown.
In order to change a human being into this.
No. I don't believe it. It's not possible.
I didn't say it would be easy, Neo. I just said it would be the truth.
Stop. Let me out.
And so here we come to a dropping of the mask moment. The concept that we've been exploring is the mask we wear, or the mask that society imposes onto us, and then the identity of the mask, and then the death of the mask. My teacher also, Dr. Young, asked us to watch King of Masks. Check it out. We're not going to look into it now, but King of Masks is a movie similar to the Matrix and Star Wars that Dr. Young asked us to watch. And it's a story about a uh, famous master who performs this famous, so almost ancient kung fu and opera performance where they switch out. He um, seamlessly, easily switches mask for mask for mask. And you can see that that's what's going on here is that just changed from red to blue. But interesting to look at and think about in terms of the mask because the concept of dropping the mask can be painted as dire and the concept of ego death. But what if you utilize it as a place of empowerment? Here you can see that the mask is used for self-mastery and for entertainment, and then as a means of transcending the mystical. With that in mind, then I want to transition now to, well, what do we believe is real? What do we know to be real? For example, last week we were talking about spring. Do you consider spring an opportunity to look at one's anger? Do you consider spring an opportunity to look at your emotional intelligence, your emotional life and living and its effects on your everyday life? And that is hard to look at. It's not until you're having a breakdown moment like Neo, where you have to drop the mask and say, look, I'm human, and this is real, and this is part of the human experience, where in fact we impose all of these expectations onto everybody to always be perfect and always show up on time. And the fact of the matter is that we are flawed and we make countless mistakes. And so now we get to the aspect of the journey of Neisha Gong Fu, the journey of internal vision. And yesterday we talked about how in Qigong, it's regulating the emotional mind that is the biggest task of Qigong training. Tai Chi Chuan is a form of Qigong training. And so what we want to look at today and moving into tomorrow wellness is four gates breathing. What is four gates breathing? A common practice in martial arts society where normally we learn how to lead the qi to the Lao Gong cavity at the center of the palms because the hands are used to strike, grab, and carry weapons. Through this practice, the sensitivity of the hands can be increased and strength and endurance will be enhanced. Strong hands mean greater endurance and fighting capability in martial arts. When you have to consider your body as an instrument and rely on your body, let's say in the battlefield, you're going to take note of every little thing and try to improve on every little thing to the point where it becomes an energy practice and even to the point of a spiritual practice. If you are learning to keep yourself alive to this practical extent, especially in ancient times where you had to protect yourself, protect your family, protect your livelihood. Not only was it practically spiritually fit to do these practices, but then it was also a spiritual quest to transcend the physical body, right? What is real? How real is the physical body? How real is the emotional body? You can't see it, but you can feel it and sense it to be real and consequential. How real is your breath? How consequential is your breath? If you stop breathing, you no longer are living. How real is energy? We question the reality, the function, and even the pursuit of energy. Why should I pursue energy, sensations of energy? Why should I pursue spiritual practices? And how can Tai Chi and Qigong be a part of these pursuits? And so here you see actually a picture, which is an outline of me with Dr. Yang, and we're doing this dual cultivation practice. And I think it's fitting towards the path that I'm going, the path that we're pursuing with all of these partner practices, the 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 mediation training, the nonviolence training, the Tai Chi for couples training, and Yin Yang Tai Chi as a peace movement. As we learn and we grow and evolve into trying to be more humane in in a wild um, in a wild environment, that being nature. So we no longer pursue those ways and those forms of living that we did in the past that brought about just more destruction, death, and how we can move towards the balance and use our arms and our hands in a refined, heartfelt, spiritual way so that our internal energetic centers are used to reduce suffering and to as well protect ourselves and our family and society. That brings us to dual cultivation practice called Lao Gong Shuang Shou. And here you see Dr. Yang and I depicting this. And here, as you're in contact, you're doing this body movement, this body posture movement, the a breath movement. You're doing a mental movement and exercise, all in coordination. So you have to have the five, a good foundation for five regulations, consciously um, coordinating at the same time the body, the breath, the mind, the chi, and the spirit. Because here, if you have an emotional fit, well, that's you're gonna disturb the cultivation of your partner as well, right? You can't have an emotional fit here. And then I should also say that embryonic breathing is the foundation of uh, this pursuit and this training. So that's where I'll leave it today. That's a long one. Let me know what you think. And I'm getting some interesting comments, and I appreciate you watching and taking the time. And we're going to continue to learn together. I'm just learning and trying to um, expand, share the knowledge, expand on the knowledge, and then see how we can apply this in everyday life for the sake of continued evolution and improvement in our lives and the lives of the rest of the human family, our soul family. So let me know what you think. Until next time, may your chi flow smoothly. Stay tuned. Wellness Wednesday tomorrow, and embrace the woo.